Here's an overview I want you to pay attention to. So when we talk about Form W-3, where this is the form we're talking about here, so you can see on the screen here. So you have all the different sections. You have the kind of payer, the kind of employer. So the IRS wants to have a clear idea about the segregation of tasks here. And we're speaking about the EIN, the employer name, and so on and so forth. So this is a W-3 is officially called transmittal of wage and tax statements. And so if you have W-2 employees you have paid during this year, you probably need to complete Form W-3, also commonly referred to as transmittal of wage and tax statements with the Social Security Administration. So everything about the W-3 actually relates to the SSA, the Social Security Administration. And let me first give you a few ideas, so you a few pointers, if you will, about the Form W-3. So employers of all sizes, small, medium-sized, or large businesses, they actually use Form W-3 to share all the information from an employee's annual W-2s with the Social Security Administration. So each year, the deadline for filing W-3s and all associated W-2s is January 31st. So January 31st, but there is a possibility, I'll speak about that later on, there is a possibility of extending that January 31st by 30 more days. So we're speaking about February 28th in some cases. And businesses with 250 or more employees must file their W-2s electronically, and they do not need to fill out Form W-3. Okay, so W-3 is basically an archiving process. It's a transmittal of wage and tax statements, as the name actually, as the form is called. And so the totals entered on your W-3 should match the totals from your submitted W-2s. So in other words, this is another way for the IRS and the Social Security Administration to reconcile, to cross-link the data that you provided on your W-2 with the data that you provided on your W-3. So the W-3 is actually a summation, if you will, an aggregation of all forms W-2 that you submitted. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. I want to dig a little deeper here. So when we talk about Form W-3, what is this form actually used for? Well, basically, a W-3 is used to share all the information from your employees' annual W-2s with the Social Security Administration, right? So it's actually a bridge, if you will, between the IRS, the state labor departments, and also the Social Security Administration. And so it is actually a summary sheet that provides the totals for the boxes on each employee's Form W-2. So it's important to keep in mind that it must be used by employers, even if only one W-2 is filed. It doesn't matter. Okay, so, and one thing I want to say here is that basically to complete Form W-3, you'll need the following. So we're going to put this on the screen so everybody has a clear idea what I'm speaking about. You need to have the Form W-3 downloadable in PDF. So you can actually get this on the IRS websites or on the Social Security Administration's website. So that's number one. Number two, you need to have your EIN number. I'm speaking here about a valid EIN number. So we're speaking about the employer identification number. The total amount paid in tips and other compensations for the year. The total amount of federal, state, and local taxes withheld for the year. So it's one of those things where, again, we are actually reconciling amounts paid on individual W-2s with what's happening on the W-3. And you also want to mention the total amount of Social Security and Medicare taxes withheld for the year. So we're speaking here about a window of 12 months. The total amount of deductions for dependent care assistance programs for the year. So whatever you actually put on your Form W-2, you have to actually transfer that on Form W-3. And also, there could be other compensation and benefits totals that actually include the effective deferrals for retirement plans and the cost of employer-sponsored health coverage for the year. So it's one of those things where when we talk about the Affordable Care Act, it's one of those things where you have to make sure all information reconciled. And again, the cool thing is if you don't want to do this manually, you can automate everything. You can actually outsource this Form W-3 transmittal to a third party, for example, a payroll service. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about Form W-3. So when we talk about Form W-3, actually, the deadline, as I said earlier, is January 31st, okay, of every year. And now let me give you some instructions for filling out Form W-3. And so as you see this on the screen here, and it's one of those things where you have to see what really applies to your situation. And box A to H are for information about your business, from the type of organization you are to your employer identification number. Let's talk about that. So box A, the control number, and box B, the kind of payer you are. So those are basically for IRS purposes. So 941, 943, 944. So 943 is agricultural. 941 and 944 has to do with whether you are an annual payer or a quarterly payer. If you're a military, if you are, let's say, a CT1, if you are a Medicare government employee. So it really depends. And so this is the type of employer that you are, okay? And also one thing I want to say here is that you have to put the total number of Forms W-2 that you have filed during the year. The establishment number, this is for IRS purposes. Your EIN, that's a self-explanatory. We are speaking about the employer's name, the official name, okay? And the employer's address and zip code. So everything that really is on the articles of incorporation, you have to put that here. And other EIN used in the year. So if you have switched your employer identification number for any reason, or let's say you are a subsidiary that in the end relates to a parent company, then basically if everything gets consolidated at the parent company's financials, then you still want to mention that here in terms of the EIN. So, and this is because the IRS wants to reconcile the tax obligations of all taxpayers, including subsidiaries, and they do not want to double tax a company that has already made payments. So if the parent company has already made payments, they do not want to tax the subsidiary. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about Form W-3. I want to talk to you now about box 9. So box 9 is pretty straightforward. So before we have box 9, we have box 8, and box 8 is pretty interesting. So box 8, basically box 1 through 8, this is basically you have to enter the totals for each of the corresponding boxes. And here we are speaking about what? Wages, tips, and other compensation. Really important. And here you also have to have federal income tax withheld. So for every income item, you have to put whatever applies to your specific situation. And box 3, you have Social Security wages. Box 4, the tax withheld on that Social Security. So again, we are speaking about things done at the individual level, and those things have to be aggregated and reconciled at the collective level. And so number 5, you have Medicare wages and tips. There are instances where Social Security wages are different from Medicare wages and tips, especially when it comes to the thresholds. And so 6, we have Medicare tax withheld. Number 7, you have Social Security tips. And number 8, we have, in box 8, you have allocated tips. Now, the allocated tips really depends upon the specific industry you're in. And there are a lot of industries where, especially in the restaurant industry, or if you are a waiter, or if you are let's say a private car service private car service worker, you might have a situation where you have allocated tips. So it's just the IRS wants to get paid, okay? The government, at the end of the day, just wants to get paid and make sure that every taxpayer has his or her fair share of taxes withheld, okay? And one thing I want to say is that everything I'm telling you about Form W-3 relates to the federal authorities, the IRS, if you will. But don't forget that the same thing must apply to the the state tax authorities. This is very important to look at it that way. Let's talk about box 9. So box 9 is actually not a fillable box, and IRS instructions say not to list an amount here. And one thing I want to say here is that it's one of those things where you still have it anyway. Okay, and then let's move on. So box 10, you have dependent care benefits. So you want to enter the total from box 10 of your W-2 forms. Box 11, non-qualified plans. Here you want to enter the total reported in box 11 of your W-2 submitted. And box 12A, here you want to enter the total of all amounts reported using codes D through H, S, Y, AA, BB, and EE in box 12 of form 12 of form WE and W2 rather. Okay, and I'm showing you right now on the screen here. We are speaking about a section that's really pretty I would say specific, because all numbers must match. The numbers that you have on Form W-3 must match all the aggregate of numbers that you have actually put on all forms W-2. And it's one of those things where you are constantly trying to see what really works for you in terms of aggregate number, but also in terms of the individual number. And one thing I want to say here is that it's an area where a lot of small businesses make mistakes. So be sure that you have either you can automate the whole process, or that you have actually outsourced the process to a third party, such as Gusto, QuickBooks Payroll, or Wave Payroll, or you name it, Paychex. All major payroll organizations nowadays, they will help you actually fill out and send automatically forms W-3 to the Social Security Administration. So you don't have to do this manually, and you don't even have to check it out. I mean, they'll take care of it for you, and they'll just make sure that all data is submitted accurately and that you are good to go. But just remember that the deadline is January 31st. So when you outsource this transmittal of data to the Social Security Administration, that the data is transmitted within on time, because otherwise you will invite penalties and fines and interest or whatever. Okay, you do not want that. So box 13, actually, you want to leave this box blank. It's actually for third-party sick pay use only. And so let's move on to box 14. So box 14, this box should only be filled out if your employees had federal income tax withheld from third-party sick pay. Box 15, you want to enter your state ID. So we're speaking about your state equivalent of EIN, or FEIN, if you will. So if the W-2s submitted with your W-3 contain wage and tax information for more than one state or territory, just enter an X under state without entering a state ID. And so the bottom line here is that, again, so if you are an employer that has several employees in different geographies, what you want to do here is that you want to really have several W-3, or you can have one primary W-3, and you have an explanatory statement attached to this. This is why, even though the form can be filed electronically, we advise all our viewers and clients to file this form manually. So when you file the form manually, you have the option to attach any documentation you want to the form, so that the Social Security Administration has the chance to review your file, has the chance to cross-check whatever you filed in previous years, and make sure that basically the data is accurate. And so this is number one. Number two, when we talk about having conducting business in multiple states, just make sure that all the states that you send the data to, they also have the proper information, right? It's all about what? Allocation. It's all about the proper income allocation, but also it's all about prompt compliance. And when we talk about prompt compliance, we're speaking about, again, having a way to automate the whole process. I mean, you know, going back to what I said earlier, you have the ability to do things manually. Yes, you can actually set this up in Excel. We actually have a database where we can set this up for you in Excel, but it's just a lot better to use a payroll software to automate the whole process. And then at the end of the day, if you want to really save time, and especially reduce the amount of frustrations, it's just a lot better to outsource the whole thing and make sure that you are in good hands. Now let's move on. I want to talk to you now about box 16 to 19. So here you are entering any states or local wages reported on W-2s submitted. So it's again, this part of the form is pretty straightforward in terms of helping you identify what kind of information you enter in the first place for state wages, tips, etc. And you have to understand that your state wages might be different from your federal wages depending upon the specifics of your state wages. And one thing I want to say here is that if you work in multiple states, then this information will be totally different, and there will be a huge segregation of data here. So it's one of those things where even if the state's data is actually there's a wide discrepancy, make sure that the aggregate is accurate. Be sure to verify that the totals entered on the W-3 corresponds to with the totals from the W-2s you submitted. You also want to double check that the totals on your W-3 match those submitted on your 941, 944, and or 944 forms throughout the year. So we're speaking about 941, 943, or 944. So again, going back to what I said earlier, 943 is about agricultural industry. 941 and 944 relates to whether you are filing on a quarterly basis. In other words, you are a quarterly payer or you are the annual payer. And one thing I want to say here is that at the end of the day, it's just a lot easier to, if you have questions, you have three options. First of all, you can either just let us know in the comment section, ask your question, and we'll certainly be very happy to get back to you. That's option number one. Option number two, you can just have software, like accounting software. It could be any kind of software, but as long as it's accounting software, you are able to create automatically Form W-3 and send everything to the IRS. And the third option here is to actually see what's done in your industry in terms of what are the players, what are the CPAs, what are the professionals that your rivals are using in terms of enrolled agents, in terms of tax attorneys, in terms of certified public accountants, and see which one actually is great in terms of helping file Form W-3, and just use that individuals going forward. That way you can save, you can learn also. You can learn all the things that the professional has, and all the knowledge that this professional has accumulated over many years. And one thing I want to say is that everything depends on your situation in terms of income, but also in terms of the number of employees that you have. I really appreciate it. Let me do a quick recap of today's conversation. So I was just talking to you about Form W-3. So I gave you the overview, and now I'm giving you the recap. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.